Mid-December comes, and over seasons are changing. We have students naturally adjust to the weather and are seen wearing things like gloves, mufflers, and even socks. The sky cloud grey like it's about to snow. We get a mention of Kiyotaka saying he's never seen the snow before. He's seen it on TV and even in books. To this day, the boy has never held it in his hand or felt it on his bare skin. He doesn't know if it will, but earns for the experience to witness it. Moving forward a little, we are joined by the Ayanokoji group, that being Airi, Haruka, Keisei, and of course the top dog himself, Kiyotaka. Kiyotaka states that he's gotten so used to seeing them that they meet up 2 to 3 times a week without any plans. I find this so great because Kiyotaka has really been able to develop since volume 1 from being a loner to now being able to hang out with others multiple times a week just for the sake of it. We dive into a conversation with the Ayanokoji group about the recent special exam. Keisei goes to say nobody in the class got expelled and he thought Class C would have made a move by now. Saying this right as Class C girls walk by. Keisei wants all the smoke, doesn't he? Airi goes to say that it's a relief, and if anyone got expelled, it wouldn't be good news. Just showing us peaceful nature as a person who doesn't deal well with harsh topics. Haruka adds there's nothing better than classes getting along, but it's difficult the way the school is set up. In order to rise above the other classes, one has to be kicked down. A harsh thought but truthful one. Kiyotaka thinks that to himself. Keisei was really impressed with what Haruka just said, says he understands Airi's words, but if we don't kick down the other classes, then we'll just be the ones getting kicked ourselves. To be a winner at the school means sacrificing the other classes. There's no need for us to be them. Haruka questions something. She says if there's a way for class points to be equalized, so that everyone can be happy and graduate as Class A, but it's cut off by the final member of the Ayanokoji group who just now joins them, Akito. He says that is impossible and he has heard that if all points are equal after the final exam, then additional special exams are to be held to determine the final ranking. These are just rumors Akito has heard and he's not too sure, but I have a theory that this is actually going to happen in Classroom Elite. I'm not sure when it will, but I feel like towards the end of the series, near the final exam, that this very thing will happen, and we're sort of going to have to deal with a situation where 2 classes are left having equal points, and we will go into a final special exam. But at least I want that to happen. Move on to another topic where Akito takes a look at his surroundings, and even starts to sound irritated, asking if Class C seems strange these days. Haruka adds, Class C are always strange. What do you mean? Kiyotaka understanding what Akito was talking about. There have been people following them the past few days. Even Akito started to realize this. Kiyotaka even spots a boy now by the name of Komiya, belonging to Class C, and of course being one of Ryuen's henchmen. If they go to ask him, they have no evidence to support he is spying. There's also the risk of them being labeled as the bad guy to confront him, so Akito doesn't say this out loud. All these things Kiyotaka has made a note of, and he knows not to engage when he's not ready, and doesn't have the resources to do so. So therefore now, he lays low. But there's also another person who is spying on them, someone not even from Class C. That person not even Akito has realized their presence. Akito even goes to say at archery today, Ishizaki and Komiya of Class C showed up, saying that they wanted to look around, but the whole time they were looking at him. Couldn't they just be interested in the club? Something only our innocent little Airi would say. Someone who couldn't even comprehend the way Ryuuen would think. That would be great if that was the case, but it didn't feel that way. Akito stiffens his shoulders. He can feel the continuing pressure of Ryuuen is putting on him, but also on the whole of Class D. It's not like I'm talking to him directly, but can almost hear Ryuen's fearless laughter. I'll hunt you down. Those thoughts came to Kiyotaka's mind as he felt a strong determination from the man known as Ryuuen Kakeru, knowing this is just the beginning. Kiyotaka understands that Ryuen's probably narrowed down his targets to a select few, including him. He knows he needs one more piece of the pie to confirm it, that being K. They decide to get dinner and Kiyotaka says he's going to go to the bathroom for a bit. He tells them to go on ahead. While doing that, Kiyotaka actually takes a little detour away, and he actually turns his attention to Class A's Kamado. He gets straight out with it and says, "You've been tailing me recently. You have any business?" "What the hell are you saying?" she replies. Where Kiyotaka comes in with the facts. 2 days ago at the mall, 4 days ago at the mall, and even 7, all while showing pictures on his phone. Caught in 4K.
They got your ass on camera.
Niggas ain't got me on no fucking camera.
This is the clearest video I've ever seen. This is the most HD shit ever. This is 4K. How did they get you in 4K?
That ain't me.
Being a straight G already, Kiyotaka fires on with more facts, saying, "Someone who's been tailing me can't really afford to look in my direction. It's understandable you didn't notice me taking the pictures. What if I'm tailing you? You got a problem with that?" she says. Guys, maybe she's in love with Kiyotaka. Maybe she actually has no restart plan. Kiyotaka goes to add he's not directly harmed by it, but he isn't asking her to stop. But what will her boss do once she finds out? "Boss, what the hell are you talking about?" Kamado says this, trying to play dumb, but Kiyotaka isn't taking her shit. "Oh well, I guess I'll go report this to Sakinagi." "Chotomate!" She interrupts Kiyotaka right before he's about to leave. You can tell from her attitude she's not happy about the situation. We dive into the situation with Sakinagi a little more. Kiyotaka sees Kamado as being a loyal dog who is really close to her. Kamado is denying that. saying if there's no way she would actually obey a person like that. She adds she would cut ties to Sakanagi if she could. Kiyotaka's pressuring her further, seeing the frustration of Kamado. He adds, if not out of goodwill, then it must mean she's grabbed a weakness of yours, and threatens to report the clumsy nature of her tailing. To where Kamado says, you're threatening me too. Too, huh? Says Kiyotaka. Looks like she really does have a weakness of hers. Kiyotaka thinks to himself. Kamado, confused, thinks it's strange how Sakanagi is targeting Kiyotaka, but of course he just shrugs it off, saying he has no clue, realizing Sakanagi's true intentions. You're the Class D student Ryuuen is looking for, right? That's the only thing that comes to my mind. Smart analysis by Kamado. What will you do then? Kiyotaka answering. You're threatening me now, but if I ever feel like it, I can take off Ryuuen, she says. Kiyotaka then offers a proposal, saying you can tell me anytime. He won't speak out, and he won't report anything to Sakanagi either. Let's just say in exchange, you won't tell anyone other than Sakanagi about me. And I don't think it's a bad deal, right? She acknowledges this, and she says she isn't even interested in Ryuuen. With that, they agree, and she walks off. Must be a troublesome weakness that's held against her. My entity being leaked to Ryuuen by another source, those misgivings have appeared to be laid to rest. With that final thought, we end chapter 1. Now this was a fun way to get the volume started off. We saw Ayanokoji group hang out, got some nice banter between them, and we even got into the past exam situation with Ryuuen and Class C overall. Pretty cool. Really fun stuff, and now I'm interested in Kamado a little bit more. He mentions that Sakanagi's has a sort of weakness against her. It really makes me wonder like what this weakness fully is and how we're going to get into it. But we're just getting started with the story, and oh boy, adding that spice along with it. Damn it, who the hell do they think they are? Pseudo grumbling as he enters the class, passing by Horikita looking furious from his expression. Listen, Suzune, what's the matter? Says Horikita, unable to ignore the angry Pseudo as he comes up to her. It's those guys in Class C, or rather, it's Ryuuen. They've been tailing me since this morning and even blocking my way while walking down the corridor. I'm starting to get really pissed off. Horikita, lightly glaring, applies in an instant, asks if he has gotten physical or used any violent language at them, to where Pseudo denies. Horikita says, I see you follow my instructions to the latter. Kiyotaka interrupts Pseudo and asks what Horikita meant by that. He just replied that Suzune told him to ignore everything if he knows he can't handle the situation. I know Pseudo likes Horikita, but it's almost like a master-servant relationship, or like a little dog-owner relationship. I don't know how to really put it, but it's almost like, you know, Pseudo wags his tail at Horikita, she just tells him everything to do, but I know he likes her, but like, come on, it's like almost like, really? Kiyotaka acknowledges what Pseudo says and says it's good advice. Or maybe I bumped into their shoulders along the way, but the other guys from the other classes should know I got caught up in it at Pseudo. Meaning that people outside the class would have actually seen the situation, so Pseudo can't really have anything blamed on him. This really shows Class C may be able to do anything to stir up trouble. We see in Volume 2, where they sort of blame Pseudo for all the camera stuff, that this could have turned into a situation like that again. So Pseudo is really lucky that people are around him, and they couldn't really do this yet again. We got into this a little bit more, and they actually called Pseudo a monkey, an idiot, and just childish things to really pick a fight with him. Pseudo punches his own palm to let off some steam. Kiyotaka thinks to himself this is a continuation of their actions towards Akito, the archery club from yesterday. Even Pseudo questions what their goal is and wonder if they're trying to cause an incident like the one before. Horikita says she isn't even sure and she'll try and think of a countermeasure, but once again asks Pseudo not to get physical, to where he replies he won't break even if they start throwing punches, which is so dope because like the old Pseudo definitely would have done something like that, but after Volume 5 and his relationship with Horikita, you can even see, first of all, the name change. He calls her Suzune now, so that's more enough. And he sort of obeys her in a way. Let's say not like a master-student type of thing, but just Pseudo alone. His character development has been really good throughout the series, and I hope it gets better. I wonder if Pseudo has really become a well-adjusted person, Kiyotaka adds. To where Horikita says, his manner of speech is still somewhat rough around the edges, but it should be within the range of acceptability. She also quietly adds that they can't afford to be focusing on Pseudo alone. And Kiyotaka wonders what's been going on with her, but really couldn't care less. This fact Kiyotaka really has no chill. Even in his inner thoughts, that's where most of the fucking fire comes out of the boy. He really does not care about anyone, huh? They get to the top of Ryuuen once more. They find it strange how there's no special exam, yet he's coming out in full force and not laying a low profile like they think he would. Horikita gets to the conclusion that he didn't wait to attack while there was an exam like Pseudo, and even brings up him doing something to Ichinose unrelated to the exams, and says Ryuuen is doing things that doesn't involve fighting over points, something outside of the box. Kiyotaka with the thought of, don't you already know without having to ask each and every time? As though asking me, she looks over, and of course I shrugged it off playing dumb. I find this bit really funny, because it's almost like Kiyotaka saying, really bitch, you're asking again. I know he's not frustrated, but I'm reading this in a frustrating tone, like, Jesus Christ. Horikita always does this, and I guess Kiyotaka's starting to get a little bit like, come on bitch, really, you're doing this still? But I wonder what he's really after this time, she continues. Do you really not know, or are you faking it, replies Kiyotaka, who's met with a clueless Suzune. Kiyotaka reiterates and says he's looking for the mastermind controlling Class D from the shadows, and he's begun making moves without caring about any of the consequences. Really just showing how much Ryuuen is forcing down on this matter, how determined he is to find the mastermind of Class D. In other words, that being you, adds Suzune. It also goes to say to Kiyotaka, using me as your cloak of invisibility will no longer work on Ryuuen. To where even Kiyotaka adds, does this mean you weren't all that unhappy about Ryuen's interest in you? That's not what I mean. Do you want me to kick you? Says Suzune. I don't want to be kicked. I immediately denied it because she's the type to actually kick you, goes to say Kiyotaka. I love this banter type relationship. The relationship and dynamic between these two really never get old, and I just love seeing the banter all the time now that Kiyotaka starts to make a lot more jokes. It's fucking great. Moving on to lunch break, I have a request to make, says Horikita, looking over at Kiyotaka. I'll pass if it's a troublesome run. To where Horikita adds, and she won't deny it, but it is one. Reaching for a book in her bag. Didn't you say last week you wanted to read this? As she places a book that has the seal of a library on it. The book being Farewell My Lovely, a masterpiece wrote by Raymond Chandler. Kiyotaka goes into detail expressing he wants to read it for a while, but whenever he goes to the library it's always on loan, so he pretty much gave up and even trying to get it. I'm impressed you managed to borrow it. By any chance are you going to lend it to me, he adds. If you want me to. Also, today's the return day. It'd be great if you could head over to the library and borrow it for yourself. Are you delegating this to me because it's a bother? Horikita explains that if she was to return it and Kiyotaka still wants to borrow it, then there would be no point of both of them going. He might as well go and borrow it from himself, returning it in the same process. In the end, he took the book and made his way to the library. At the start of lunch, the library seems to be empty. On that, Kiyotaka decides to borrow another book, as he sees it as, if I borrow one book or two books, then the trouble of returning both of them will be the same. Be like Kiyotaka, y'all. Think smarter, not harder. Kiyotaka decides to get a book from the mystery corner, but while there he spots a lone female student struggling to reach the book. She seems reluctant to use a step stool, and he thinks to himself, this must be the difference between a boy and a girl. Cancel the boy, cancel the boy. Get him on Twitter and cancel him. Kiyotaka decides to reach for the book and says he may have done something unnecessary, but before he can finish, he realizes the girl beside him. This girl being Class C's Shina Hiyori. Top 5, y'all. I'm saying top 5, y'all, right now. This girl right here, top 5. We saw in the past volume before, but I'm seeing her again, and I'm gonna just say now, she's in my top 5. If I recall, your Ayanokoji-kun, was it? She asks. Kiyotaka confirming it, saying it is him, hands Hiyori the book and says, do you like it? Bronte? Moving on a little, Kiyotaka tries to move away from the conversation as he sees it as bothering someone's valuable lunchtime. But to his surprise, Hiyori says, are you looking for another book to borrow by any chance? If it's only about looking for a book to borrow, I'll be glad to lend a hand. Since you're already here, wouldn't you rather borrow another book? She really went and said book 3 times in one sentence, huh? I still love her though. I still love her. Kiyotaka says he'll leave it for another time, but actually stops and wonders what she is doing. Hiyori has already taken her eyes off Kiyotaka and looks around the mystery corner of the library. She finds a book and asks Kiyotaka if he has read. He is not, so she goes to recommend another series, pulling it off the shelf. Kiyotaka is bewildered. That little word left his mouth. I'm sorry for speaking out like this. Did I annoy you? Hiyori says. She's too wholesome, bro. Please. She's really too precious, y'all. I really can't get over this. Sorry, I was a bit surprised, but I guess I'll borrow them. Saying that, Hiyori's face turns to a happy one and goes to ask, if you're okay with me, would you like to eat together? Says Kiyotaka. Thinking from recommending books to eating lunch, he can only assume this must be orders from the Class C leader, Ryuuen. If he is to refuse or accept, the impression Hiyori will have of him will be the same. There is no one in Class C who likes reading novels, so I have no one I could talk to. Kiyotaka realizing that it could be the silence that caused her to say that. He asks if it will be a problem because of the situation right now with Class C and D, and even adds he's been labeled a suspect as the mastermind of Class D. Kiyotaka thinks that Hiyori must have heard about the mastermind. He tries to confirm if the chances of running into her are low or wasn't a coincidence here. Also adds that Hiyori is a much creepier existence than Ryuuen, as the entity of Shina Hiyori is completely unknown, and he didn't even notice her in the previous exams. Hiyori interrupting Kiyotaka's thoughts and says she was never interested in conflict, and was making a formality on Ryuen's part. Also asks if there was a problem for Kiyotaka to talk to her. If there's no problem on your end, I have none either, he replies. Hiyori relieved, she adds that she would hate for classes to fight over trivial things and making friends is the most important thing, y'all. Rereading this really makes me want to marry Hiyori. Like, yo, she's my wife. Like, I really feel like she's my wife. Like, goddamn, like, please, let me marry her. Like, I show. Please, please, please. I really feel like it shows how not everybody in the school wants to fight, and you get people who are like Shina, like Hiyori, who just like to hang out, make some friends, and read some books. While at the cafeteria, Kiyotaka chooses the daily special, whereas Hiyori is just standing there, unable to pick what she wants. 2 minutes pass, and she finally makes her mind up. She gets the same as Kiyotaka. She really is like a kid in the candy store and just so cute. I love how we still get introduced to these cute characters within Volume 7, and we have a lot more to come later in the series. Kiyotaka and Hiyori start a conversation. They talk about how it was Hiyori's first time in a cafeteria and she finally mustered up the courage to come eat here. She decides to continue where they left off and slams 4 books on the table, asking Kiyotaka to read one of them. They're all mine. I'm carrying them around just in case I meet someone who shares my interests so I can lend it to them. Is that so? Says Kiyotaka. This girl might have a few screws loose. Really? Really, Kiyotaka? I guess one weirdo meets another weirdo. I just love Hiyori. Her character's such a vibe. She just be vibing around, chilling in her home bubble. She just likes to read, you know. Just leave my girl alone. Back in class, Kiyotaka receives a message through the Ayanokoji group chat saying he was going to come to the mall. But while reading the message, he is cut off by his neighbor, that being Horikita Suzune. She mentions that Kiyotaka's grinning face is giving her the creeps. Kiyotaka, confused, says with confidence he wasn't grinning and he doesn't remember the corners of his mouth curving upwards. But Horikita didn't mean his face. She was referring to his inner self. Kiyotaka, realizing what she mentions, he actually acknowledges he is overjoyed having a friend send him a message. He was grinning, huh? He thinks to himself. I find this so dope. Like I said before, Kiyotaka slowly changing. In Volume 1, we saw him as really emotionless, but now he sort of gets this type of emotion where he starts to feel overjoyed. Almost a little bit. It's kind of dope. I love really seeing the side of Kiyotaka and I really wanted to develop even more. Akito mentions that they showed up at the club again. But Haruka in a sarcastic tone saying Class C is giving us grief, aren't they? Ah, speaking of Class C, I saw it. I saw it. How detestable, boss. She gets to the point and says she saw Kiyotaka eating lunch with none other than Shina Hiyori. And mentions that a sweet little Airi has been worried up to the point that she even spills her rice all over the place. Airi gets flustered and yells at Haruka, asking why she mentioned that. I love this group so much. The banter of Haruka teasing Airi all the time is just golden. They start to talk about if there really is a mastermind within Class D, talking about the past exams and how they played out. The group start to list off names, questioning if it could be Hirata and label him as a prime suspect. All of a sudden, Airi speaks out. She asks everyone not to get angry and asks if the mastermind could really be Kiyotaka. Everyone all of a sudden turns to him and questions if his test scores were even good. He shrugs this off and even mentions that he gets all of his advice from Horikita. Now in class the next day, Chabashire calls out Kiyotaka and says she needs to tell him something. Trying to get out of it, he says he's got business with Horikita, but Sensei isn't taking my boy's shit. She says circumstances are circumstances. Now we know Chabashire showing emotion doesn't really happen too often, so we know this is kind of serious. She tells him that he doesn't have the right to refuse, and moments later they go to the reception office. Kiyotaka makes a joke saying that it is too early for career consultation, but she slides it off and says you'll understand soon enough. At this point, I'm starting to get really tense. My stomach's in a knot and I can't even anticipate what's going to happen next. This is spicy. If that's worse, the tension builds up even more. Kiyotaka begins to talk about how he's more curious about Sensei and mentions she is even agitated, like the person behind the door is making her act strange. Mentioned to be fine for any other teacher. Since it's Sensei, it's kind of strange. Headmaster, I've brought Ayanokoji Kiyotaka-kun. He enters. A gentle but dignifying voice. A man in his early 60s sits on the sofa. Kiyotaka's seen him several times. This man is surely the headmaster. The expression told on his face is not a laid-back one, but a stressful one. He's even able to see beads of sweat form on the man's forehead. The reason for this, one man sat opposite him. Kiyotaka now realized this was the reason he was called here. Headmaster leaves the room. Kiyotaka, now alone, looks at the man. He's in his early 40s. Although the headmaster is nearly twice his age, he acted extremely polite to this man and left his territory like he was running away. Even Sensei bowed before that very man before leaving, closing the door, giving Kiyotaka one last look, that being a worry. The man tells Kiyotaka to sit down and mentions he is meeting him of his own accord. It's been 1.5 years since Kiyotaka has heard this man's voice. His tone and his way of speech haven't changed one bit. Kiyotaka says let's make this quick. He has friends to meet up with, but the man fires back and says he is not capable of such things. Not even seeing how he lived, the man judges Kiyotaka. He says he had prepared papers for him to drop out and all he needs is a special word of yes to be done with it. Kiyotaka decides to put up a fight and says there is no reason why he should. The man pesters on and says that may be the case for you, but he's different. Silence now in the room. He looks up and pupils like sharp blade edges look directly at Kiyotaka. It was like he was looking straight at his core. Kiyotaka carries on. You mean a parent for now, planning on twisting his child's wishes to his own accord? The man questioning what Kiyotaka just said, saying he has never recognized him as a parent, though where Kiyotaka even agrees. Yes, The very man in this room right now is none other than the father of Kiyotaka Ayanokoji. Shivers is all I can say. God damn, I really did not expect this. Out of all of the things to really see in this series, the last thing I would have expected is Daddy pulling up to the school. This was really stressed, and even the build up to getting in the room and having this as the payoff is phenomenal. This is one of the greatest scenes in the series for me already. His father says he has defied orders of staying in the White Room and has rolled into the school. Therefore, he is ordering him now to drop out immediately. Kiyotaka says his orders only applied inside the White Room, therefore right now, in this very moment, they are null. He goes as far to say as Kiyotaka is his property and his owner, and has every right to use him as he sees fit. To live or die is at his own command. This man is insane. He is like the final boss. Someone play the Dark Souls music, please. The fact that he says this in this very country is illegal and shows the kind of horrid, wicked person his father truly is. The conversation will just go around in a loop if they continue like this, so it doesn't matter what Kiyotaka says next. He says something strange and mentions the man who gave Kiyotaka the idea of rolling at this school, asking if he was curious what happened to him. He decides to tell the story. The man, being his butler, went against orders. He taught Kiyotaka about the school's existence and how to flee from the White Room. The man sips his tea. He says this was inexcusable and unforgivable, and he had to be punished. He tells him that he was fired, and Kiyotaka thought that was fair. Kiyotaka reminisces on this very man. He was close to 60 and was very good at taking care of people. He married young and had his first child around 40, but sadly lost his wife within that exchange. His son was also around the same age as Kiyotaka, and all he used to talk about was his son. He even used to brag about him. He remembers the butler telling him his son was working hard at his school to repay his father. The smile he had of that man still burns into his mind that very day. If you thought that was wild, wait what comes next. Kiyotaka's father suddenly mentions the son. It was like he was thinking what Kiyotaka was thinking in this very moment. He mentioned how the son passed a really difficult entrance exam for a famous private school, and he must have worked really hard. The man pauses, but continues. He goes to say that boy has now been expelled. Kiyotaka realizes the meaning behind these words are clear. He says that the son has been withdrawn at Kiyotaka's father's will, or because he had the power to do so. This goes to show how powerful Kiyotaka's father really is. You can only imagine the headmaster of all people sweating in the presence of this man. You must think, how powerful really is he? He mentions the boy was a strong child, and after being expelled, his spirit still didn't wither. He continued to try and enroll at other schools, but Kiyotaka's father proved too powerful. In the end, he stopped all of these attempts. If that was enough, he made the boy and the butler give up, spreading around bad reputation, therefore stopping him from getting a job. He was trying to make Kiyotaka feel like shit, pointing out all these little things, saying it's because of him the man and his son lost everything. He wasn't sure if this was true or not, but also thinks it would be pretty petty if he came all the way here just to report this. He realizes Kiyotaka probably isn't surprised by any of this, but carries on, almost like he's edging on Kiyotaka. The man lost his wife at an early age, raising a son all alone, and now grieving over his own actions, costing his son his future. The butler had one way to save his son. He pleaded Kiyotaka's father not to touch him anymore. And just last month, the man did something unthinkable. He burned himself to death. What the fuck? This story got really dark, huh? Out of all the things, I really did not expect this to happen, but it really goes to show how much power Kiyotaka's father really holds in this society. He's able to stop a man getting a job anywhere, and is even able to contact schools to stop the boy getting into them. Just a fucked up individual who ended nothing to get his property back, picking at little things to show it was Kiyotaka's fault. Himself, his actions led to this conclusion. But he continues on yet again, mentions that the son works part-time and has no guarantee if he can survive, no dreams, no hope. Even goes to mention that it is all Kiyotaka's fault and the son must hate him. Right before Kiyotaka was about to ask, he stopped. He says the man who took care of him will probably turn in his grave seeing his attitude right now. Kiyotaka says he doesn't have any evidence of this, but is yet again cut off, saying he will bring in the death records if necessary, and even says, ask me any time. Kiyotaka mentions if the butler really is dead, there is no reason for him to leave. Despite knowing all the consequences, he still helped Kiyotaka to the very end. Knowing all of this, Kiyotaka says he has to succeed as well, just giving a joke of a reply to his father's bullshit. He tells Kiyotaka he's changed, and even questions what has happened in the school within a year to make him like this. Kiyotaka mentions he was provided with the best education in the White Room. He taught him usual arts, self-defense, and martial arts. But the one thing they didn't teach him was the thing he wanted the most. A chance to learn about the world. He wouldn't be able to learn these things in the White Room. Going into more detail, he speaks about freedom, and says how it feels not to be bound by anything. Kiyotaka knows his father cannot deny this, and agrees the White Room is probably the most efficient place to raise a human, but it doesn't teach you everything. He says out loud to his father, he was told that this school would be the only place in Japan where he could not reach him. He Tells Kiyotaka he can make him quit by force, but he disagrees, saying he can't interfere as the school is backed by the government. He asks for Kiyotaka's proof, to where he mentions that the bodyguards who are always with him, even while he is shitting, are nowhere to be seen. His father still denies, but Kiyotaka says if he really wanted him to leave, he could do so before even counting to 3. Time passes and Kiyotaka stands his ground, saying he won't leave. Before trying to end the conversation, someone comes in, a man in his early 40s. He gives his respect to Kiyotaka's father, and he refers to him as Ayanokoji sensei, what really may show the respect he has for him. Sakuyanagi. It's been 7 to 8 years, I presume. Kiyotaka can't help himself. The very mention of this man's name, he thinks this man associates to the leader of Class A, Arisu Sakuyanagi. He gives his respects to Kiyotaka and says he wants to talk to them both. He's heard the news about Kiyotaka's father wanting to withdraw him. He mentions that the students are the first priority at the school. Kiyotaka is really grateful by these words. He mentions that the recommendation at the school should have been disqualified, as you need to go to a middle school to even enter this place. But the chairman himself approved Kiyotaka's application and refuses to withdraw if Kiyotaka doesn't wish to quit. He tells the father that Kiyotaka will get no special treatment and will be expelled if there's any trouble. With that, the man finally gets up, and his final words, "We'll never meet here again." Now alone with the chairman, he mentions that he's been watching Kiyotaka for a long time behind the glass. Kiyotaka mentions, so that's how it is. He mentions Arisu, to where the chairman confirms that Arisu is indeed his daughter. So that's how it is, says Kiyotaka, realizing in that very moment how Arisu knows him. Go back to volume 5, where Arisu sort of talks about how she knew Kiyotaka, how she knew all about him, his very existence. He understands now of a connection between him and her. It's all behind the glass. She used to see him in the White Room. They go back and forth, but he also does mention that she's not just in Class A because he's his daughter. No, this boy Cap it. This boy Cat that I played. He tells the story about Kiyotaka's enrollment into the school a little more. He mentions that interviews and the exams are only a formality. He says even if you flop your exam, mess up your interview, getting 100 on the exam doesn't even matter. You could still be rejected. All of this is decided in the survey. The very moment you fill out the survey and give it in, they know your placement in this school. Where Kiyotaka thinks in his head, it makes sense how people like Sudo and Ike got in. God, why do my boy Sudo like this? I mean, Ike's dumb anyway, let's be honest. I don't give a fuck about Ike, but god damn, why do we go to the boy like Sudo? Chairman says he said too much and stops, but reassures the school will protect their students. With that, Kiyotaka leaves and is met by the face of Sensei once more. You ask how the conversation went with his father. He replies he understands everything. Sensei confused tries to get the man to elaborate, to which Kiyotaka tells her everything you told me were lies. All the talk about the man contacting her to quit the school were all lies. Sensei denies this, saying that's not true, and she is constantly trying to get him expelled. He said the chairman told him everything. The chairman told you everything? Kiyotaka laughs. In that very moment, Sensei made a blunder. She realized it too. She asks if Kiyotaka has been probing her the whole time. He replies and says yes, the chairman told him nothing about her just now, but it has become very clear. He goes to explain that the chairman knew his father from way back. When he first applied, his route to Class D was already confirmed. The reason he got sent to the Class D was the teacher happens to show no interest within this class conflict. What the chairman did not know was that the teacher of Class D, who holds no love for her class, is really the one who wants to rise up to Class A the most. Sensei at this point was unable to reply. She remained silent. She knew arguing with Kiyotaka would not end well for her, so he didn't hold back. Kiyotaka really has this bitch in a corner now. Like, she's silent. Like, she is silent. She's not able to reply. She's being shot down. She has nothing to say to our boy. He said by the time the special exams start and they can't even hold a candle to the other classes, then she would probably use the information of what the chairman told her and get Kiyotaka to lead the class to the top. In the end, Sensei probably didn't anticipate Kiyotaka's father showing up, and due to that, she was no longer able to control him. She admits that she doesn't know his father, and Kiyotaka says that you can't get me expelled. Kiyotaka decides to calm down from that agitated tone just now. He explains just because he's giving up doesn't mean they won't rise to Class A anymore. With that, he stops and he says the line, "I'll have you release me," and thinks to himself his turn is up, but didn't deny it entirely. A little later, Kiyotaka decides to call K, the main reason for this being he wanted to apologize. He explained he had his reasons to help Class D reach A, but the reason is now gone. She asks if that means she will be freed, and Kiyotaka confirms. He says clearly that this is the last time he will ever contact her. Says K, giving a delayed response. Kiyotaka thinking if it was the wind would cut it out. He repeats once more. He says it is a natural course of action, and if they continue to contact each other, it will seem suspicious, to which Kei agrees. Kiyotaka makes one last promise. He will still protect her, and he will keep that promise to the very end. She asks why he's saying all this all of a sudden, and it is too cold even for him. Kiyotaka replies saying there's nothing cold about it. It's just the extent of our relationship. She asks if this is the last time she can talk to Kiyotaka like this. Do you dislike that, he says? Of course not. And there is no problem. Kei ready to say something. Kiyotaka leaves the call on for a little bit. Sadly, she couldn't say anything, and he cuts the call. Damn, my girl Kei was really about to say something, but she couldn't. I really love the relationship between these two, though. I guess you could say what Kyo and Kei have built have sort of been a wholesome thing, but also, like, fucked up. It's been slow, but wholesome one at the same time, like I'm trying to say. I don't want to see it end yet, and I just love them two being together all the time. All the time. You call me a fangirl, that's true. I just shipped them. I shipped them. While home, Kiyotaka had a visitor ring his bell. Man, he was actually thinking of seeing himself. That being the older brother of Horikita, man who was the student council president, or well, was the student council president until a little while ago. Comes into Kiyotaka's dorm. Kiyotaka asks if he has business coming all the way to see a first year. He goes to mention that he would like to inform him of the current student council president, Nagamo. He says he has no intention of discussing this with anyone else, but the circumstances have changed. He talks about how he's maintained school's traditions that it was founded on, but now Nagamo is trying to overturn all of that next year. We may see an unprecedented amount of expulsions. He mentions taking in Nagamo in the first year to the student council. He actually developed his own ideals, different from his own. And he's even conquered the entire second year. He says he wants Kiyotaka to continue to hide behind Suzune and build a bridge between him and the student council. Kiyotaka gives Manabu his contact number, and to his surprise, he thought he would get turned down. He tells him if he ever considers cooperating, he'll contact them. Manabu leaves. I find this kind of crazy, as Kiyotaka lost the purpose to rise up to Class A, or really lost a reason to rise up to Class A. It's like he has a new purpose now, and he took it upon himself to make this his new one. I guess helping Manabu would be this new purpose. It may show the respect he really has for Manabu, but it could be something else. We never know. Great chapter though. We had the Class C and D conflict, we met Hiyori, and we met Kiyotaka's father. It was just fucking wild. I really did not expect that, but goddamn, it was crazy. And now we met Manabu yet again, and he is giving us some little bit of foreshadowing. So, dope. Class No Elite is just heating up, and might as well call this the beginning. A massive typhoon fell upon Class D that day, being the doors opening up and Class C students showing up, including none other than the leader, Ryuuen. Crazy to see he is watching from others, but now he is here himself. Others showing up with him were Ishizaki, Yamada, and the big boy Albert. Also Komada and Kondo. They don't matter, so don't worry about it. Suda says, what the hell, this is Class D, but this was more of a self-defense reaction. Right away he stood up and approached Ryuuen. While seeing that, Hirata panicked and got between them. He decides to ask if he has any business here, to which Ryuuen says he's here to visit a friend. Why are you all afraid? This man Ryuuen is really just a giga chad. I can't help but not like him. Hirata says yes, it's strange, because he's never even stepped a foot in this class. Announces that they did well in the paper shuffle exam, to where Suda interrupts saying, Ryuuen is an incompetent ape of a boss. Ryuuen finally remembering Sudo's name, they have a few words, and met eyes and glared at each other. You could see several people in the class get frightened about the situation. Ryuuen gives Class D a warning. Some people not understanding this, but some of them knew what he was really after. The mastermind behind Class D's success. He looks at a student, and that man didn't even take notice of him. Looking at him, he took preparations to leave the class, and with that, Ryuuen and his lackeys follow. Class now in an uproar because they realize Ryuuen is going after the pretty boy Konji. Leaving the class, they find Konji. Just as they feared, he is face to face with Ryuuen and his lackeys. Ishizaki asks Konji to humor them, to which he says he doesn't think he's done anything to be hindered like this. They say he doesn't get to decide this, and the look on Konji's face when surrounded by Class C is not a single look of panic in his eyes. He is calm. Makes you question how confident he really is, right? Ryuuen steps in front of him, and to his shock, he even says, oh, I remember you. You're Class C's delinquent kun. God, this boy Konji really does not give like any fucks. He wants all the fucking smoke, huh? Ryuuen says he was busy before. Says he's a freak and he's coming to mess with him today. Konji, being a Chad, flicks his hair back and says, by freak, did Ryuuen mean him? They go back and forth, and Konji says they will have to finish up business over there, pointing towards a rest area. Now at the rest area, Horikita actually intervenes. She interrupts Ryuuen, asking what he's doing. Ryuuen points out others in Class D, but ignores Sudo's whole existence. Konji, not still giving a single fuck, pulls out a mirror and starts checking out his appearance. He hands Ryuuen the mirror and says, you may point it at me. This man Konji might actually be a bigger Chad than Ryuuen. Like, my boy pulled out a mirror like in the middle of a confrontation and said, yo, point it at me. What a Chad. Class C just stunned, saying nothing. Ryuuen decides to smash the mirror and says, his hand slipped. Out of nowhere, Yakanagi appears and interjects. Ryuuen and Konji go back and forth, to where he even calls Ryuuen Dragon Boy, which is a kind of a sick nickname, I'm not gonna lie. But this makes Yakanagi break into laughter. Ryuuen, ignoring that, threatens to lynch Konji as payback for the Zodiac exam. Ryuuen does not give a fuck. Like, he threatened to lynch Lynch my man? He threatened to order a lynch on my man. Jesus. He thinks Koji is just insane in his own way, and he isn't X. X being the mastermind of Class D. Takanaki decides to get into this topic. She mentions an interesting topic about a Class D student getting in Class C's way. She says that it appears Dragon Boy is looking for that student. Ryuuen interrupts and tells her to shut up. If he calls her that again, he will kill her. Ryuuen says his plan was torn apart by X and he is there to draw them out. She asks if X isn't just the excuse for why he failed. Ryuuen later brings up that he manipulated Class A's Katsuragi into a contract, but then pairing up together in the island exam led to this contract. Being struck with Katsuragi, paying him 20,000 private points a month, no exception. Pseudo acknowledging that they get a guaranteed allowance every month. Painful for Class D at the moment. Very painful. Right before wrapping up this conversation, Konji says right now Class C and A may as well be the same. He has no interest in other classes. Takanagi says she couldn't pretend to not hear that, and says Dragon Boy-san was one thing, but she gets cut off. Right as she utters those words, Ryuuen launches a kick full force in her direction, to which Hashimoto gets in between them. Due to the full force, he gets blasted away. Did I hit a nerve? Says Takanagi. Takanagi apologizes, says she may have teased him a bit too much, but asks Konji to explain that bored comment, to which he replies, "Do you really not like what I said, little girl?" Which causes her to laugh once more, saying it is a wonderful nickname. Ending this conversation, Ryuuen says his preparations are complete and he leaves. Now this chapter was a short one, and I did cut a lot out of it, so people might be a little bit mad if they compare it to other people, but I cut a lot out of this one because I really want to get into chapter 4 and chapter 5, what I have covered in depth, and I've made a pretty good commentary for. But that's all for chapter 4. Pretty fun one. We got to see Konji really mess with everyone, show that he's really a Chad and has the balls to speak in front of anyone. Can't wait though. Konji's dope, Sakanagi's dope, and the Dragon Boy comment, I think that's a sick nickname. That's all I'm gonna say. The day for me to attack has finally come. Now enter the perspective of Ryuuen. Now rolling out all the candidates, he has 10 left over. Ryuuen says X is probably trembling every day having their identity nearly exposed. Little does he know how wrong he was about that comment, and this man is just vibing in the shadows. He has to make contact with Kei and confront her, as X probably made contact with her. A really good observation from Ryuuen, and a smart one too. Ryuuen feels his heartbeat get quicker and quicker due to the excitement of this coming day. He feels that he's never seen a person this similar to him, and the fascination gets him so worked up. He wonders how he will change when he meets X face to face. The thought of it makes his heart throb, similar to how one would think when they get their first love. Is Ryuuen like in love with like Kiyotaka? Like, he sounds like he's about to fucking come all over the place. Like, Jesus Christ, I get the obsession with X, but like, goddamn. It's time, says Ishizaki. He heads out with Ibuki, Albert, and Ryuuen, and brings them only because they can keep their mouth shut for what he's about to do. Winter vacation is just beginning and there's barely anyone left in school. Ryuuen decides to go to the rooftop and explains the situation we saw in Vol 4 with Kei. He tells Ibuki that she will definitely come because if she doesn't, he will expose it all. Ibuki mentioned if she would even sell out X, but Ryuuen mentioned she wouldn't normally, but because of all this dirt he has on her, she may. He thinks destroying Kei will be destroying one of X's pawns. He knows the trauma of Kei and he will pressure her to live the same experience so she spits out X's name. Now this bit is really fucked up. Like, I mean really, really traumatic and fucked up. Like what's about to come in the coming few minutes. So if you guys have a weak heart, either skip to chapter 5 or just click off the video now. You've been warned. Ryuuen says to the others to run if they are against it, but they actually all stay. Ibuki says she will follow him, but if it gets too dangerous, she will back away. Now on the rooftop, he gets a spray can and obstructs the camera's field of vision, creating a blind spot. He tells Albert to stand guard on the stairs, and if anyone comes up, to buzz his phone instantly. It is around 2 PM, and Kei is now here. The mail you sent this morning, what does it mean? She asks. Ryuuen tells her there's no need to ask, and her being here is her understanding enough. Message sent to her. Manabe and her group told me all about your past. Come alone to the rooftop after school. If you tell anyone about this, then the whole school will know about your past tomorrow. It's almost like Kei had no choice but to come. Otherwise her status would have been ruined. Rubbing her hand, she says it's cold and she wants to wrap it up quickly. But that's all a lie. She's pretending to be calm, but even Ryuuen can see through this farce. Kei makes it clear that if Ryuuen does anything to her, she will report it to the school. Ibuki senses Kei could have a trick up her sleeve, but Ryuuen, smart as always, knows that the only person Kei can rely on is X. Makes it clear that he wants to know X's identity and just asks Kei straight up, who is X? And if he tells her, she will be free. Kei actually plays dumb and tells Ryuuen to elaborate and brings up the situation about being bullied by Manabe. Kei not even saying a word is stunned, but Ryuuen explains the whole situation. He can tell for the very look in her eyes of what he's saying is true, Not a single breath is needed from Kei to even confirm this. Ryuuen questions that Kei might not even know the identity of X, and they may have been contacting her anonymously, but in the end realizes this couldn't be true as she wouldn't even obey a hidden figure. Kei has to know who X is. That was the final thought in Ryuen's head. They go back and forth a little bit more, but it continues in a loop. He says the only way for Kei to save herself is to tell him everything. The only way he won't reveal her past is to give X's identity. Kei chooses to neither confirm nor deny the existence of X, or in other words, he's basically saying, fuck you to Ryuuen, I'm not telling you shit. Ryuuen decides this talk isn't going anywhere and he needs to take things to the next level. We'll stop at nothing while trying to find out who X is. Ryuuen is prepared to do anything, including take a few risks. Basically, I just need you to spell out X's name, right? He says. A dark thought then appears in Ryuen's head. This is your fault, X. Kei goes along and says Ryuen's threats have failed, and how was he gonna make her talk now? He thought the idea was obvious. Maybe because it was so twisted nobody else would think of it. Tortures the good old-fashioned way. He orders Ibuki to hold down Kei, to which she even was surprised and seemed resilient towards the idea. Do it! A strong tone came from Ryuuen demanding Ibuki to do this. Still not wanting to, he tugs her arm firmly, saying he will take all the responsibility for what comes next. Clicking her tongue, the deed is done, and now Kei is apprehended by Ibuki with no means of escape. She screamed, but couldn't do anything due to the experience Ibuki has. Kei is now deemed motionless and is unable to move. Ryuuen then orders Ishizaki to go fill the buckets with water. Ishizaki playing dumb asks what for. Ryuuen not taking shit asks if he is disobeying his orders too. Panic is sent down Ishizaki as he passes by Ibuki to fetch the bucket. Like I said before, Ryuuen is a twisted individual. One way wasn't working, so he moved on to a different method. Method far more cruel. Something a normal human wouldn't think of. So fucked up that he rolls out the idea of blindfolding Kei to amplify the experience of fear for what's about to happen. Ryuuen looking at Kei figures out the whole story, from Manabe's group to even mentioning her fake boyfriend Hirata to protect herself. Kei tried to lie, but her eyes told the whole story. That darkness then came out. Ah, she yelled, struggling. Ryuuen was able to know this because he's done this many times before. He's seen all the rotten people within his life. He could tell from a look of her eye. Ishizaki now back has 2 buckets filled up 80%. Questions how Ryuuen knew there were 2 buckets. This is where Ryuen's knowledge and preparation comes in. It's like he was saving this the whole time. He mentions that with enough research you'll be able to find and understand everything your eyes fall upon. Found this while investigating the security cameras locations within the school. He was able to encounter a bucket and remember little details like this. Something impressive but devious at the same time. For a man to notice, he must think about every little thing he can use against his enemies. Ryuuen takes losses and may seem dumb sometimes, but he is far from a dumbass. He is a man of pure patience. A man who has been waiting for this very day. He will stop at nothing to find X. Ryuuen mentions that trauma is better invoked through actions rather than drawing it out with words. With that, he signals Ishizaki what to do. Ibuki then pushes Kei forward, then Ishizaki dumps a water bucket all over Kei's head. The chilly winter weather, her thin clothes, feeling the full impact of this cold water, Kei's fight, a fearlessness she seemed to have before, is now gone. No, no, screams Kei, covering her ears trying to deny it. A scared little girl trembling, she could do nothing. Takes out his phone and even starts recording. Then takes his hand and grabs Kei's bangs, lifting them up. He notices tears coming out of her eyes. Ryuuen now sees the internal battle of Kei reliving her past in this very moment. Explain that this footage was spread around the school, she tells him nothing. Scream, cry, beg me for forgiveness. Ryuuen goes on and on, doing anything to break Kei. A moment so cruel, only Ryuuen is capable of this very thing. Even Ibuki acknowledges this, saying how cruel it is. She shouldn't have helped him. Ryuuen crouches down and continues to pester Kei. Not giving her a chance to recover, he grabs another bucket and dumps it all over her head. He orders Ishizaki to get some more. He demands Kei tell her who is protecting her. But Kei is still fighting, repeats over and over again, there is no such person, there is no such person, there is no such person. Just shaking her head over and over, running away from the situation. Even when put through all of this, she will not tell Ryuuen. Losing patience, he decides to grab Kei's arm and pulls her up. This is where the fun starts, he says. Ibuki now in disgust. She can't watch this. She says this is disgusting. She could only lean on the door to the rooftop, refusing to participate in this deed known as bullying. In my eyes, this is far more cruel than bullying. This is pure torture. This is inhumane. Why am I being bullied? Why am I even alive? What did I do wrong? Kei's frozen heart began to eat away at her body. Only those depressing thoughts could gloom her mind. The only sight she sees is Ryuuen laughing, asking her who X is. She realizes if she tells him that she could be saved temporarily, Ryuuen could just use this against her again. Kei chooses to put her faith in Kiyotaka's words, saying he will protect her, or save her. His last-ditch effort will protect Kei from being fully engulfed by the darkness. But the horrid memories start to come as Ryuuen carries on. She's scared. She wants to be saved. These thoughts repeat in her head yet again. She's scared. She wants to be saved. It was like a broken record. Kay's memories continued to make her relive everything. All that bullying. No, 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 was the only thing she could say. Ryuuen continues, but Kay's pride is already gone. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Please forgive me, she says. Ryuuen states that even if she was to get him expelled, she'd find a way to spread these rumors, making sure that Kay would be bullied again. There was a pause. A moment of white came through Kay's mind, followed by darkness. She recalled memories of middle school. She would get water thrown on her, punched and kicked while they filmed, even put animal corpses on her desk. All these humiliating memories came flooding back to Kay's head. She was reliving hell, no salvation in sight. She thought if she accepted the reality of being bullied right now, then it would be easier. She knows if she accepted this, her heart couldn't take it. She wouldn't be able to live anymore. They took one look up at the sky. The tears she was holding back began to fall. Why do I have to go through this? Was all she felt. Kay understands if she's told Ryuuen that she would not only lose Kiyotaka's trust, but all of her friends too. I will save you. She remembers those very words from Kiyotaka, but he was nowhere to be seen. He didn't even come racing to save her. She wonders if Kiyotaka saw the text she sent him. Was Kay deluding herself the whole time? She didn't even know. Was she betrayed? Was she abandoned? Ryuuen asked Albert if anyone was there, but to his avail, nothing. Ryuuen tells Kay how he managed to figure out. She wasn't ever rescued. She was ensnared. Kay starts to question some events, like Kiyotaka showing up in Volume 4. Wasn't any coincidence. It couldn't be. I wasn't saved, she thought. Kay realized she was caught up in Kiyotaka's trap, and was just tricked. At a crucial time like this, he abandoned Kay. That would only mean one thing. Ryuuen knows Kay has realized this fact too. The fact that she's been bullied yet again. Kay's face, drenched in water, surrounded by darkness. The only way to save herself is to tell Ryuuen, and it will all end. Getting closer and closer, all she has to do is say the name. Ayanokoji Kiyotaka. Take it easy. Give me the name, says Ryuuen. Ta. It's starting to come out. Ta? Ryuuen questions this. Words are coming slowly. Ta. Ka. Just one more time and it would all be over. Ryuen's face gets closer and closer. No matter. Kay knows from the beginning she had no intention of telling him. No matter how many times you ask me, I will never, ever tell you. That line from Kay, the smile on Ryuen's face, froze. This was fine, she told herself. It was fine, she repeated over and over. She was ready to break here, but at the same time felt proud. She had no regrets. Even when she was surrounded in nothing but darkness, for some strange reason, she still had hope, deep down inside, that there was still hope the boy, Kiyotaka Ayanokoji, would save her. 2 hours before Kay fell before Ryuuen. Sensei tells the class that their promotion to Class C is all but guaranteed. She gives a rare honest praise. Kiyotaka looks in Kay's direction before putting away his textbook. He received a single mail from Kay. The mail was for emergency use. It was something regarding Manabe that Ryuuen wants to meet up at the roof at 2 PM today. Kiyotaka knew this was an act to lure him. A little bit after school just before 2 PM, he was out with the Ayanokoji group. He decides to leave. He gives a call to none other than his home teacher and says he wants to meet. Now there she asks what Kiyotaka wanted to discuss. He asked why she wanted to rise to Class A so much. There can't be a bad reason, otherwise there would be no reason to manipulate a student. She explained just how students get rewarded for rising up, the teachers do too. Therefore it's obvious that they want to aim for the top. Kiyotaka says that isn't the real reason. It gives an example of the remark on the test, saying they could have put Class D at a disadvantage. She explains that's a personal matter and has nothing to say. Kiyotaka outright says she was probably unsure at the time if Class D had what it took to become Class A. Kiyotaka stops her, saying if you won't give the answer, give up on using him. If you let this day go to waste, Class D may never rise to A. Class C. Kiyotaka looks at the classroom clock and realizes it's 2 PM. He explains the situation with Ryuuen calling Kay to the roof. He asks if Sensei will lend a hand in this cooperation. She has no intention to. She says the school doesn't look too good upon teachers intervening in student situations. He decides to threaten her and mentions there'll be no guarantee he won't sabotage Class D in the future from rising to other classes. The tide is now changed. It is no longer Sensei threatening Kiyotaka, but it is now Kiyotaka threatening her. They make an agreement, but Sensei plays the role of observer in the story. Some time passes, it is now around 2:30. Kiyotaka has seen Ishizaki come down with buckets just as he thought. Judging by the drops on the floor, Kiyotaka can tell he has done this several times. He's been able to figure out Ryuen's scheme of trying to make Kay relive her trauma. He realizes that Kay is yet to tell Ryuuen of his identity. Time keeps ticking and even Sensei asks how long is he going to wait. Just a little more, he thinks in his head. He has another chat with Sensei about the private point system this time, but for the sake of the video, I'm gonna save this for another time, maybe in another video. I will talk about this, but not for now. Some time passes. Step by step, Kiyotaka climbs the stairs. He's stopped by a black shadow, that being the gate watcher, Albert. Hey, oh, by the way, I did not call him the Black Shadow. Like, this was specifically wrote by the light novel. I would never call him the Black Shadow. I might get cancelled for that, so chill out, okay? May I pass, he asks. Albert then takes out a cell phone and tries to call Ryuuen. Then in English, Kiyotaka says not to panic. He is the one he is looking for, and that today, he is the one who solves all the trouble. No one will interfere. Albert now opening the door. Kiyotaka looks at Kei, and Ryuuen looks at him. Ayanokoji? Shocked, Ibuki questions why he is here. Asking Ryuuen if he is X, Ishizaki denies and says it's impossible. Ibuki continues further, says that X is manipulating Kiyotaka, but Ryuuen even interrupts her and says, shut up. The very idea of Kiyotaka being X seems impossible to Ibuki. She can't even fathom it. Well, what do we have here? If it isn't Suzune's orbiter. Ryuuen teases Kiyotaka, to where he explains Kei sent him a message asking to be saved. Ibuki carries on, saying it's all a lie. He was just ordered by X to save Kei. Ryuuen questions Ibuki, saying she doesn't want to believe that Kiyotaka is X. She explains that Kiyotaka is a fool and brings up volume 3 for Island Exam, where she mentions hiding underwear in a boy's bag, but Kiyotaka never suspected her. Of course you're going to suspect a random stranger. She asks Ryuuen if he believes it's him. Ryuuen says he suspected him due to always being with Horikita. Ryuuen came to the conclusion that it had to be two people, Hirata or Kiyotaka. A continuous argument breaks out. Kiyotaka decides to break his silence and tells him he's the one they have been looking for. Ryuuen mentions the best move would have been to abandon Kei, and if he really is X, how will he overcome the situation? But Ishizaki and Ibuki continue to doubt Kiyotaka, to where he starts clearing things up, one by one. Ibuki's digital camera in volume 3. He's the one who broke it. All of a sudden, Ryuuen grabs Kei's hair yet again. He pulls her up and laughs in her face full of pain. But it's now different. Her eyes are no longer full of fear. Her hero has come. The promise has been fulfilled. Kiyotaka has came to save her. Ryuuen realizes her eyes have put all her faith in Kiyotaka and loses interest, shoving her to the side. Ryuuen says everyone on the rooftop has been made to make him yield through violence. Ibuki screaming at Ryuuen, saying this will spell trouble for the class. He decides not to take any shit. A sharp sound was made. It was the sound of Ryuen's palm connecting in Ibuki's cheek. She immediately fell to silence. Ryuuen explains he doesn't care unless he's enjoying it. Slowly surrounded, Kiyotaka explains that people do indeed yield through violence, but that logic only applies if you are stronger than the other person. He questions, the thought of you won't be enough to stop me. Confused, Ibuki raises an eyebrow. Suddenly a laugh comes from Ryuuen. Ryuuen explains what Kiyotaka is trying to say is that he won't be yielded by the likes of them. He edges Ishizaki to go for him. Don't hold back, and to get him. There is no problem if we give him a thorough beating. Wait! A scream coming from Kei, yelling that beating up Kiyotaka won't gain anything, but Ryuuen stops her once more, grabbing her hair, shoving her to the side, telling her not to get involved. Don't worry, Karuizawa, Kiyotaka calls out. It started. Ishizaki began to swing his fist. Seen as such a dull motion, Kiyotaka isn't even phased. Claims a middle school student would have been able to dodge this. Catches his right fist and even gives him some tips, saying if he's going to do this then to act serious, all in the middle of a fight. He's giving him tips. What are we witnessing? Kiyotaka uses his left hand to clench down at Ishizaki to the point his knees tremble and they buckle. Unable to hold on, he drops to the floor. The first one to notice wasn't Ibuki, nor Ryuuen, but the very man behind Kiyotaka, Albert. The black shadow approaches him, swinging his arms around like a pole. Kiyotaka anticipates the damage and gets hit by Albert. Such a powerful force going through Kiyotaka's elbow all the way to the very tip of his shoulder, as expected. It hurts. Ibuki in shock tells Ishizaki and Albert to stop messing around, but she really couldn't tell Albert used his full force just now, or maybe she just didn't want to believe this. She wasn't able to comprehend that Kiyotaka was doing all of this. Do it, Albert. Those orders come from Ryuuen, and he is sent charging in like a bolt, swinging his massive arms. Kiyotaka realizes if he continues to be hit, the human body won't be able to take it. He let him hit him the first time, but cannot afford to be hit another. Dodging his left hook, Kiyotaka fires back with a frontal attack, plunging his fist into Albert's abdomen, not holding back at all. For once, a change has appeared on the usual stone-faced Albert, but ever so slightly. Kiyotaka realizes Albert's body is blessed, and the damage is shallow. He even goes to say that his body must have been trained to a considerable extent. He decides that it would take much more effort to break his still-like body. Kiyotaka knows the solar plexus is an area he cannot train, therefore he will aim for there. He knows it is not a guaranteed KO, but he goes for it anyway. Albert, realizing Kiyotaka is aiming for the spot, twists his large body to evade it, but Kiyotaka saw it coming. Albert then makes a gargle sound. Kiyotaka will not even be able to process what just happened. Ishizaki comes screaming from behind him. If you're going to attack me, then don't shout. Damn, Kiyotaka might as well teach the shonen MCs how to fight with that tip, huh? Kicks Ishizaki's knee and confirms behind him Albert is collapsed completely. He then spins around and kicks him in the face, then right after punches Ishizaki in the jaw with his left hand. Isizaki collapses. Albert is now collapsed too. Silence engulfs the rooftop. You're telling me Kiyotaka spun around, kicked Albert, and while Ishizaki was in front of him, punched him in the jaw, all in one motion. What the fuck? The only thing Kei, Ryuuen, Ibuki could do was burn this very moment into their eyes. They were speechless. They realized Kiyotaka was much more than they expected. The situation here Ryuuen has set up favors none other than Kiyotaka. He states that if he never had his identity on being exposed, then he wouldn't have used Maname in the first place. Ibuki frustrated throws a kick towards Kiyotaka, not even being bothered by her panties what are visible in this moment. Kiyotaka, dodging every mood, acknowledges the brilliant moves Ibuki is performing in this very moment. Evading all of her attacks, Ibuki realizes Kiyotaka is indeed the real deal. The only thing she can say is that he pisses her off. Kiyotaka leaps towards her, closes the distance, doesn't even give her the time to dodge nor block before grabbing her neck and slamming it onto the ground. She would then lose all consciousness. Ryuuen clapping now, walking up to Kiyotaka. He commends him for not only being sharp, also S-class when it comes to violence too. He tells him there isn't just physical strength that decides victory or defeat, but when it comes to violence, it's about how strong your heart is. Ryuuen lowers his stance, his left fist going to Kiyotaka's abdomen. Not taking the chance, Kiyotaka evades and launches his own attack. His right arm trying to grab a hold of Ryuen's bangs, but is stopped by Ryuuen, who slaps that effort away with his left hand, right before being kicked in the ribs by Kiyotaka. In that situation, Kiyotaka used his right arm to distract Ryuuen and kick him just as seen. Kiyotaka is impressed and even gives a compliment to Ryuuen, saying not bad. This is fun. Suddenly those words left Ryuen's mouth as he began to laugh. Ryuuen cannot get enough of this situation. His smile widens and he continues to attack once more, not holding back one bit. It's almost as he fully acknowledged Kiyotaka as a worthy opponent and continues to fight him at full force from the jump. Kiyotaka says he doesn't believe Ryuuen has what it takes to beat Albert, but sees his style as a self-taught one from the experience he has seen in the various situations he's been in. Kiyotaka realizes he can't dodge all these attacks perfectly, but it is easy to fight back while accepting his blows. After a fourth punch, Ryuuen asks why isn't Kiyotaka fighting back. He explains that he's got his own reasons, and Ryuuen asks him to save it after he beats him. Kiyotaka asks if Ryuuen thinks he can win, to which Ryuuen says, does he think he's invincible? Sorry, I can hardly imagine losing. The fact that Kiyotaka is getting hit and not fighting back to a force so strong as Ryuuen really shows how powerful he is. It really shows Kiyotaka isn't even trying in this situation. I find this fucking insane and hype right now. Rereading it for the fourth time almost. It is so hype. I can't even fucking comprehend what's happening myself. He tells Kiyotaka that he'll probably win here, but what about tomorrow? Or the next day? He would get him anywhere, even while he's shitting. Yes, he actually said he'll get him while he's shitting. He said he would jump Kiyotaka while he is shitting. He will come at any angle. Kiyotaka asks Ryuuen if he is afraid of losing. Ryuuen explains that he's never once in his life felt fear. He realizes that this is the source of Ryuen's confidence. Once you feel pain, one slowly learns fear after. That said, they go all out. Kiyotaka, Kei screams as he gets hit by Ryuuen, but he expected it. Ryuuen stomps down with his left leg to close the distance. He then extends his right arm and strikes Kiyotaka's right knee, the most crucial hit he's felt today. Kiyotaka, now on his back, feels the pain rush through his body, and Ryuuen asks if he understands what he means. Kiyotaka does not, and says pain is just spreading through his body. Ryuuen asks if Kiyotaka and they are similar, and feels no fear. But that's not it. Kiyotaka knows fear. Kiyotaka knows fear is caused by pain. He knows how miserable and terrifying it is to be a loser, and even see people break right in front of him. But after a while, it stopped being fear. He just felt cold. He realized that no matter how much suffering and despair he's gone through, others will never have to experience what he did. One could say because of Kiyotaka's understanding of fear and how much he has gone through, he's able to manipulate those very emotions that feel nothing, or those emotions he had in the first place were no longer there. They continue to fight. Kiyotaka lowers his right knee, checking a kick from Ryuuen. He asks why he wasn't dodging and letting himself get hit, to where Kiyotaka says he was experimenting if he can feel the fear you described. Yes, this fucking man let himself get hit to see if he could feel fear. This man is the GOAT. Kiyotaka knows he is miscalculating moves, but is doing so in the process of shattering Ryuen's spirit. He asks where Kiyotaka got that strength and says it's not normal. Little does Ryuuen know it is a place that him and no one else will ever reach getting into normal fights. He asks Kiyotaka if it feels good hiding, looking down on these small fly every day. He even goes to mention, I bet it feels as good as ejaculating, doesn't it? Yes, he actually says this. This isn't me, guys. Ryuuen is the commander, not me. I did not write this. Ryuuen actually said this. Kiyotaka explains that he doesn't even think of them because they have nothing to do with him. He once again assumes his stance. Ryuuen screams and he says he will pulverize Kiyotaka till he feels fear. Kiyotaka grabs Ryuen's right arm as he's about to shift his leg to knee him in the face. He pulls him in for a right hook straight to the temple. Ryuuen then gets blasted away from a blow strong enough to put someone's lights out. Kiyotaka restrains a little from knocking him out though. He then speaks. He mentions you never felt fear, did you, Ryuuen? Laughing on the floor, saying that's right. He doesn't understand nor has he felt it before. Kiyotaka now above him continues to fight Ryuuen. Ryuen's strength nearly gone. Kiyotaka rains a powerful blow from above. This turns Ryuen's expression grim. Ryuen goes to talk about how confident he is because he's lost many times over. Due to the cuts inside his mouth, he spits out blood and is unable to speak properly. Kiyotaka then swings his fist down once more. Again, left, right, again and again. But Ryuen still felt no fear. Violence reflects your true self, both the one doing the beating and the one being beaten. Ryuen closes his eyes and laughs, provoking Kiyotaka to hit him. As he opens his eyes, Kiyotaka starts to throw and throw, raining all kinds of punches at Ryuen, but even still, no fear in the face of him. He says that it hurts, but that's all. There's no other emotion in Ryuen, besides one of pain. No fear, no nothing. The man's very eyes realizes he's lost the battle, but he will win the war. He asks Kiyotaka if he's laughing over domination, or if he's angry, maybe excited, maybe even irritated, and screams at him to tell him. Kiyotaka can't see his own face, but he is sure nothing this trivial will make his heart shake, and there should be no emotion slipping out. The amount of times he's landed his fist on Ryuen, he's lost count of, but now he won't stop. Left, right, he continues to land all of these strikes with the same force. Ryuen's face then contorted. A cut up face, a look of shock. Yes, that's it, Ryuen. You see it too, no? The very feeling of fear exists within himself. Ryuen in this very moment felt fear. Then pummels Ryuen with a blow more powerful enough than any other that came today. In that single blow, he reaped his consciousness. May have planned to manipulate my heart, but unfortunately for you, I don't have a heart that can be manipulated. Slowly standing above Ryuen, goes to Kei. He says sorry for putting her all through this. Kei says for her own sake she didn't sell him out to Ryuen, that's all. Right before collapsing into his chest, trembling, saying she was scared. She was so scared. Kiyotaka reassures her. Nobody will be able to dread up her past from here on out. She can act the way she's always been. He tells her that tomorrow you can pick yourself up where you left off, but to remember if something like today ever happens again, he will definitely save her. Kiyotaka knows that Kei will not be able to go on this school without him anymore. Her heart will never ever crumble so long as he is there. A few flights down, the student council president, or the former student council president, Manabu Horikta, he knows the situation, as well as Sensei. They will take care of it. He tells Kei to go down first as it could be seen as troublesome if they are seen together. Kiyotaka waking all of them up with a slap of the cheek. Isazaki first, to Ryuen last. Ryuen asks if he thinks this is over, but Kiyotaka says if he really wants to keep going. If necessary, even war, says Ryuen. Kiyotaka tells him that Manabu is a few flights beneath them, and that if he doesn't know the details, he will be able to see this very moment the camera got destroyed. Therefore, Ryuen cannot do anything, but decides to end things here, and Ryuen says he is done fighting against Kiyotaka, and at the same time his own battle is over. He tells Ibuki he'll take responsibility for everything, therefore he transfers all her points to her. They try to stop him, but he doesn't listen. He says to Kiyotaka one expulsion is enough, he will take it. Ryuen leaving, Kiyotaka stops him and asks if he wanted to know why he lost against him today. He explains he has no visible injuries and they could just say Ryuen had a falling out with his group, therefore he doesn't need to get expelled. But not listening, Ryuen says everybody lost to Kiyotaka today. He wants to disappear, minimizing any damage dealt. With that, Ryuen leaves the rooftop. And that wraps up chapter 5. My voice is almost gone, so if it's getting weak about now, then I'm really sorry, but we're now in the epilogue, so I could sort of take more of a chill thing, but what a fucking amazing chapter. We had a 4v1, and Kiyotaka got to beat everyone's ass, not even trying half the time. That fight with Ryuen was amazing, the dialogue is phenomenal, and I hope I presented it properly, because my voice was dying at the same time, reading all of this in one go. Phenomenal though. Kiyotaka is just amazing though, he has so much mystery to him, and the fun just really starts here. There's so much more fun to come in this series. Stay tuned for the other videos soon. Early in the morning, Ryuen heads out and sees Ibuki. She has appeared to be waiting a while. She asks Ryuen if he is really dropping out. Ryuen just responds saying, aren't you going to give my phone back? Asking if he is really going to drop out after losing to Kiyotaka, to where Ryuen responds he has sealed his fate and couldn't care less anymore. Thought in Ryuen's head. To think he would make me feel like that. What a guy. Wonder if there's any respect there. Never know. Ibuki says she only cooperated with Ryuen because he would get them all to Class A, he said. 800 million points, she said out of nowhere. It would take that much for all of Class C to move up to Class A. She'd seen a memo on Ryuen's phone showing that it took this much points. He told her to stop dreaming and told her this memo was only a joke. Ibuki hasn't even touched a single point. She said if he wants to drop out then to fight her. Ibuki grabs his sleeve. Ryuen noticing that Ibuki can barely move her arm, he pulls it off forcefully and starts to walk away. But the very next moment he gets beaten up. It hurts. I can't even fall safely. says out loud, realizing Kiyotaka destroyed his body. Ibuki leaves, walking back to the dorm, leaving the last words, "If you're going to quit, then quit." Ryuuen now with his homeroom teacher, the teacher mentions there is a problem. The two students there, Ishizaki and Albert. Ryuuen, pissed, tells him he would kill them and tells them to get lost. Sakagami-sensei mentions that the security cameras was destroyed yesterday, to which Ryuuen says that was him. Now shaking off Albert and Ishizaki, they walk over to the counseling room. He confirms it with Ryuuen, that it was him who broke the camera, to which Ryuuen agrees, but also says there was a fight between him and Ishizaki, and also Albert, and even Ibuki. Confirms it and says he will take all responsibility, saying he threw the first punch. Ishizaki trying to interrupt him once more. Ryuuen launches a kick towards him. Ishizaki actually decided to follow him instead of going back. "How many times are you going to make me say it again? Is the beating I gave you yesterday not satisfy you?" mentions Ryuuen to the crouching Ishizaki. He asks Sakagami if he would go through the withdrawal process, but he mentions there is a misunderstanding, saying that some trouble with Class D may have happened too. He says Class D was also involved in destroying the camera. He mentions Class D had paid private points covering the repairs. "He's fucking with me," he says out loud, realizing Kiyotaka is up to this, to stop him from dropping out. He says if Ryuuen wants to drop out, then it's fine, he can't stop him. He gets out the paper and asks him to write his details down. Sensei says after this, he will deliver this to Ishizaki and Yamada too. Ryuuen confused says, well, why? They have nothing to do with this. Then realizes Kiyotaka must have suggested something stupid to them. Shit, he realizes. He doesn't want someone else to drop out of the school just because of him. "I won't drop out," says Ryuuen, handing back the paper to Sakagami. Knowing Kiyotaka has cornered him once more, Ryuuen can no longer drop out. We now learn some rumors in the first year. Some being that Ryuuen has stepped down as the leader of Class C and now spends his time alone. Kiyotaka wonders if a future day will come when he finds something. He says they are similar. He may be worth using again. With that, we end Volume 7. Now, my voice is completely dead. I was recording, do some retakes of all of this, and I think I've been recording, like, before the edited down version for 2 hours. I spoke for 2 hours straight, and your boy forgot to get water. But, phenomenal volume. Volume 7 is one of the best in Class to Elite. This is my first time doing a video discussing a whole volume. I'm more used to covering 15-minute chapters and stuff. And if this video is bad, I do apologize, I'm not gonna lie. You could say it was rushed a little bit. But the next one I'm gonna do in 2 parts. We're gonna be covering volume 11 next. The reason I'm not doing volume 7.5, 8, 9, and so on is because I already see some people covering those. Nobody's covered 11 yet, and nobody's covered 11.5 yet, and they won't do so until a little bit later. So I'm going to do 11, and I hope you guys will enjoy that soon, and we're going to do 11.5, and from then we're going to cover the whole of Year 2. Even the 3 volumes I've yet to read. Year 2, Volume 4.5, 5, and 6. I'm really excited to read those. I may read them on stream, so if you guys haven't already, I appreciate if you guys follow the Twitch down below. But about this volume, phenomenal. I hope you guys really enjoyed all the things that have come in this volume, and what are going to come next. Class Elite has really not slowed down. You can really call this the start of the series. It is just a phenomenal series, what I love dearly. And this was one of the volumes what really got me hyped. I haven't even been this hyped seeing a fight on the screen, yet alone on paper. This was on paper. I read this fight and got hyped off words with only 2 images at the end. Phenomenal. I love this series so much. I hope you guys do too. And I want you guys to stay tuned. If you guys haven't already, I appreciate any likes and subs coming too. And that's really about it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know what you thought about this volume. What would you rate this volume if you already read it yourself? And I'll see you all next time. Sensei, out.